Hi, my name is Tracy Broughton, and I am going to be presenting my action research project of effective literacy instruction for English language learners. As stated, my name is Tracy Broughton. I am a third grade teacher, and I have a high percentage of English language learners within my classroom and school. For my bachelor's degree, I earned a Bachelor's of Arts in Education and my endorsement in ESL. Therefore, I have an ESL cluster classroom. What motivates my study is finding the best literacy instruction for English or in the general education setting for English language learners for their academic success. I think many teachers have noticed that they have not been properly trained and they want to give their English language learners the best practices to move forward in their education. Therefore, my research question is, what is the impact of effective literacy instruction for ELLs in the general education setting? My problem statement: from research, there is an increase in diversity within schools the past 10 to 15 years. So therefore, teachers need to learn effective literacy skills to make the most impact for ELLs for their future education. I have three themes within my literature review. The first theme: issues with teaching ELLs. ELLs have a lower achievement in reading skills, and therefore it affects all subjects, such as reading skills, um, affecting their writing skills or understanding other subjects that they are learning throughout the day. My theme two is developing interventions within small group instruction with structured activities can help increase student understanding. And therefore, theme three, literacy strategies need to be taught in research-based strategies such as phonological awareness, rich vocabulary use, reading and reading comprehension skills. Using these several research-based strategies will help close the achievement gap within the classroom and across grade levels. My purpose statement. So why complete research for ELLs? Number one, to understand what literacy strategy is most effective for ELLs. I use my quantitative and qualitative mixed methods approach with an emphasis with an emphasis on quantitative data. I use an embedded design research to understand the outcome of the study. And I wanted to know if one strategy could continue that I could continue to help ELLs in their literacy skills for their future. Methods and demographic settings. So my participants, I had 4 third grade students. They were either level 1 or 2 ELL, and this is directly from their ALPA 21 scores from their 2022 testing. And this testing was directly from their reading, writing, speaking, listening, comprehension skills proficiency level. Next, their ethnicity and native language. I had 2 Hispanic speaking Spanish students and 2 African American speaking Tigrinya. The setting in school that I am in, I had 44% of students speaking another language, with a total of 644 students. Setting is a third grade classroom using small group instruction. My methods, assessments, and intervention. So I have developed a table to show a timeline, data collection of my research project entirely. To begin, I started with the baseline phase. This phase was 3 weeks long, doing lessons of phonics, vocabulary, writing, and fluency. This was nothing that had to do with the intervention process, but just wanted to have a good baseline phase just to compare the data with. I took test 1 and completed self-esteem test 1 with the students as well in small group instruction. After those 3 weeks of learning and testing were completed, I moved on to my intervention phase, which was 4 weeks. With this intervention phase, I did use the same phonics, vocabulary, writing, and fluency lessons, but I now use the Fountas and Pinnell curriculum to directly teach the intervention. I began with test 2, exact same test as test 1. At the end of the weeks, I gave a weekly assessment for this to see the students' understanding of the lessons. I took weekly recordings of my observations and concluded with my test 3, a self-esteem test 2, and student one-on-one interviews to conclude the intervention with. Again, all taught within small group instruction. So for the methods, the literacy skills that I taught consistently throughout both phases were phonics, vocabulary, writing, and fluency to see what is the best literacy skill to teach to those ELL students. My quantitative data, I gave tests 1, 2, and 3 throughout my 2 phases. The different phases of research will just show the understanding throughout the process of the research. My weekly assessments were to show student understanding being taught throughout the week. And my 2 self-esteem surveys were to show my student motivation, comfortability, and confidence within school. For my qualitative data, I used observations on my iPad once a week and took one-on-one interviews at the end of my intervention to reflect upon the total intervention as a whole. So to conclude, the reasons why I decided to use both quantitative and qualitative data is to see what literacy instruction would show the most growth for ELLs. Methods and data analysis. So for my weekly assessments, I use averages for each literacy instruction that was collected. I have descriptive statistics to determine my test 1 and 2 compared to each other versus test 2 and 3 compared to each other. For my interviews, I coded, themed, and developed themes within my interviews. For my self-esteem surveys, the questions were scored 0 to 4. Both surveys were exactly the same, and the averages were collected. Observations, explore topics and themes for students' perspectives throughout the intervention process. For results of my quantitative, I began with my tests 1, 2, and 3. As you can see on the top part, I have tests 1 and 2 on the left-hand side, and you can see the means have increased. On the right-hand side, tests 2 and 3, again in the intervention phase, the means have increased. And on the bottom, I have average or the totals of all students, tests 1, 2, and 3 comparatively together, showing my descriptive statistics of all 3 tests throughout the intervention process. For my results of my quantitative self-esteem, I have the total within my graph shown here. And on the table, I have my mean of survey 1 and survey 2. And finally, my results for my literacy instruction that was specifically taught: phonics, vocabulary, writing, and fluency. Now, in the blue graph, phonics instruction, there was an increase of scores throughout the 4 weeks of all students, and these are the mean scores of all the students. And you can notice the red graph, the fluency instruction average scores increase as well throughout the 4 weeks. Vocabulary in green and writing in purple did not increase as much, but did show some increase, but were just not as telling as phonics and fluency were within my quantitative data. So those were 2 literacy instruction strategies that I found to show an increase for those students. My qualitative data, I created 2 themes: positive feedback and engagement and collaboration, directly taken from student interviews and observations collected from those students in the study. Theory and connection. My general theoretical perspective influencing my research is the cognitism theory. For my cognitism theory, it's all about research findings and what the results have found within the study. And I think that directly impacts my research question of what is the impact of effective literacy instruction in the general education setting. I used a embedded design, quantitative and qualitative data sources, quantitative being the one I primarily looked at and influenced my study. Implications: effective literacy strategies to improve ELL literacy skills. 2, students see more experience working in small group instruction. 3, students see more experience reading and writing to build foundational skills. Again, implications, but this is connected with past research. The past research states suggesting writing instruction, scaffolding that instruction, reading comprehension, vocabulary, literacy growth, as well as motivation and more success in small group instruction. My limitations: I felt like I had a small sample size for my group. Gathering data for only 1 classroom was not enough. My length of time was only 4 weeks, and time restrictions did make an impact, including snow days, assemblies, field trips, and early outs. For my future research, I want to ensure that students have a full 30 minutes consistently for 4 days a week. research and literacy instruction. I want to conduct research in other classrooms and have other grade levels within my research. I want to conduct research with multiple levels of ELLs and have a longer length of time. And here are my references. Thank you for listening.